Hello and welcome to the Healed podcast. Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be covering the bail hearing of Tiffany Lee Meek, who stands accused of the murder of her 11-year-old son, Jayden Lee Meek. In a previous podcast, we brought you all the details, the timeline of what happened in that case, so you can have a look back there. We're going to leave a link below, which will take you to that video. But today, Ella, how are you doing? We're back here to discuss the bail hearings. In a short period of time, there's been so many developments, so much information in this bail hearing, which many people have said, is this the bail hearing or the court case? Because there's so much information that came out in the last 3 hearings. What are your thoughts, Ella?
Hi, Ruth, and welcome back to our guests. Thank you for connecting with us once again and being a part of these discussions. Very, very important conversations. So this is just an update. But I will say that this bail hearing has just rolled from one day into the next, a lot of back and forth, quite a tedious process. I must commend those involved in the case, having to spend all of their time there, bringing information to the court. I think that the judge is really being very meticulous in making this decision, not taking this decision lightly. So it's been a lot. It's really been a lot, but it has been good, you know. And you know how I've been saying Jayden Lee Meek is telling his story, and you can see that in the bail hearing as well. So yeah, good to be here with you, Ruth, just to do this update to let our viewers know where we stand with this bail hearing to date.
Absolutely. And the community on day one, Ella, thank you for that information. The community on day one came out. There were so many police that has definitely changed, and the judges only allowed a few key community members into the space, into the gallery. Novin Naidu, he is the attorney for Tiffany Lee Meek, and he's definitely presented a lot of findings which was not in the original affidavit. And the investigating officer, he's got his own timeline of events. So merging the two has been really important in creating a picture of what actually happened on that day that Jayden went missing. And the investigating officer, some of the comments was that he might have seemed a little taken aback by all the information, but he really came back so strong on day two and presenting all of the evidence. And yesterday he alluded to the fact that there might be more witnesses, which he is not going to be giving during the bail hearing. So there's going to be further developments, and it is like this case is ongoing. The partner of Tiffany was also present, her mother and her brother. So those are the three people supporting her. And then from the community side, I think it's Mr. Singh and certain other community members who are looking at the case and what is happening there. And Mr. Singh has given us daily updates with regards to what's happening on the ground. I just want to reference here, there are 4 charges against her: obstruction of justice, criminal injury, murder, and the 4th one is concealment. And what is really interesting here is to see how this is unfolding. There was so much information going through, and in the beginning, what I noticed was Tiffany was taking a lot of notes, but that has not happened during the last 2 bail hearings. She's just been sitting there and listening and taking it in, but her demeanor from the first bail appearance, has also changed. She was quite emotional during the first 2 hearings, and then the last 2, she was quite silent and just watching the proceedings go on, almost still.
She almost seems sedated to me. She seems
Yes,
sedated to me, yeah. But I hear what you're
especially the way
saying.
her eyes were blinking. There was something really, yes, sedated would be the proper word. Absolutely. What are your thoughts, Ella?
Well, as you say, there's a lot of back and forth, you know. I think that her attorney, Nova Naidu, is his angle in fighting for her to have her bail approved is to sort of discredit a lot of the police's statements, and the police is making
Mm,
every effort and certainly holding ground to clarify their statements, you know, that
mm,
it is not untrue, that, you know. And I do think the investigating officer is doing well with regards to that. There are key things that came out in the case, you know, well, in the bail hearing. It's not even the actual trial yet. The fact that Tiffany pointed out in her statement that had the ambulance arrived, her son could still have been alive. She was only informed almost 60 minutes after they had found him, something to that effect. Don't hold me
yes,
to
yes,
specific timelines, because the timeline is also something that they seem to be going back and forth with. 20 minutes difference, 15 minutes difference. They're really nitpicking with that, especially her attorney, Nova Naidu, just to
yes.
sort of create the image or the impression that the investigating officer or the police could be exaggerating a little bit in his
Mm,
attempt to discredit the initial statement from the investigating officer that she should not be granted bail because of her safety. It's not about the flight
yes.
risk issue. She's not a flight risk. She doesn't have a passport, but the community is gunning for her head, so to speak.
Mm,
And
mm,
so that is his angle. And so it was really pointing out where things could have been different in the initial statement on behalf of his client, Tiffany Meek, and then the investigating officer um, sort of slapped back with proof that, or statements that prove that she was there at her apartment complex early hours of the morning, which she had left out. That is quite a major twist. It is a big
yes.
detail to just omit. So there has been some of that also, where she gives the impression that perhaps someone else was in the apartment. You know, like how did the evidence get into the apartment? Were they actually there? Did they go in and out? That sort of thing. So there's a lot of back and forth, and there are a few key elements that already begin to paint a picture of what happened, Tiffany's
Yes.
whereabouts, and already begin to poke holes into some of her statement. So I think her attorney has his work cut out for him. And when it comes to her being safe and her wanting bail, I don't know, Ruth. I think that just based on the protests on day one, and obviously then the judge was quite clear about not having as much of the
People that,
community around and all
yes,
of that. But they
yes,
were very clear in some of their interviews that they wanted to be given bail because they want to deal with her.
yes.
And I saw another clip today where someone said, if they let her out today, she's dead, you know? So I don't think that the investigating officer, yeah,
Some of the community members said they were even willing to pay for the bail to so that she can come out. And yes, they want justice for Jayden. We obviously know there's a few people who's really passionate about that. But in the defense of Tiffany, Ben was stating that he asked the investigating officer, how do you know that jail is better than being out on bail? And very quickly, the judge interjected there and said, withdraw that statement because it came across as being really disrespectful. The investigating officer having knowledge firsthand of what prisons look like, because he's dealt with prisoners before. And then the second one was in another bail hearing, Noven Naidu referenced a different case, which is unrelated to Jayden's matter. We said that someone who is alleged to have killed a 14-year-old, also in the same district of Rutherford, was let out on bail of 5,000 rands. And if that is the case for that person, could it be the same for Tiffany Meek? And then he further went on to ask the investigating officer, does he know about this case? And the investigating officer said no, he has no knowledge of this case and he can't answer about that. So he used that case as a reference point, saying to the court, if that man got bail, and there was more evidence in that case apparently to corroborate the events, then what is holding back the state from granting Tiffany bail? So around the actual bail hearing, and that was Noven Naidu's closing statement by using that other case as a reference point. But the case officer was very, very strong in again reiterating what he said on Monday, saying, look, we have evidence placing her at the scene during that time. He does not believe that someone else was in the flat, and so he believes that she should not get bail. And Noven Naidu and him were having back and forth. So strong opinions in the court. Like you said, the community is looking for justice, so that also needs to be taken into consideration. One of the other findings that came out that I thought was really interesting was the injuries. Elif, I wanted to touch on that because that told a story in itself. We heard that Jayden had suffered blunt force trauma that was the cause of death to his head, and there were several other abrasions on his face, cuts that were quite deep, and also on his right arm. There was quite a big bruise of 5 centimeters, which indicated someone could have held him back or pulled him. And because of the blunt force trauma, there was a deep hemorrhaging of the skull, and also some swelling, cerebral swelling. And what was clear from the state were that there were no defensive wounds. So that implied that he might have been asleep when it occurred or restrained in some way. And they also found traces of blood. And these findings suggested a sudden act with no efforts, made to Jayden didn't fight back at all. And I was just thinking about that yesterday, those last moments in the flat, because the state confirmed that is where it happened. Do you have any thoughts on that, Eva?
Well, it sort of matches with the theory that I mentioned this when we went live. We know this growing up. When we got beatings, we didn't fight back. We took it. If it was a stranger attacking him, it might have been a different. So, and sudden and perhaps not seeing it coming. So it does give one quite a bit to think about. I want to go back a little bit to the argument between her attorney and the investigating officer around the prison and all of that. I mean, those questions I feel were to sort of lead or influence the judge's thinking, because to ask the investigating officer to testify to things that he's not been in prison, and to ask him, have you been there? He could have snapped back and said, well, have you been there? Neither of us have been to prison, so then it becomes a petty argument. I think that was just, it could be said that it was a bit petty and it was inappropriate because our prison is not what is on trial. Our prison is not on trial. And the argument could also be that Amber Lee Hughes has been in prison for 2 years and she's been perfectly fine. She's gotten dental treatment, which I can't even have. I can't even afford dental treatment, you know? And so this argument can go back and forth depending on different perspectives. And if we're going to draw on all the cases that have ever happened, the reality is that the investigating officer was saying, we need to make sure that this trial goes to court. That is his priority. And at the moment, if you compare the community's outcry, which is very visible all over social media, they are outright, they are not even hiding it, versus what people who have been in prison when they are on trial for similar cases. We've not had many reports of people. We've not heard as, there's not so much of an outcry there, or there aren't many cases where people where similar cases, in similar cases, those who are being accused of them have ended up being murdered, whereas we do have a lot of reports of children being murdered. So I think that was predominantly just to sort of make the judge think, or a little bit of a side jab, just to sort of create doubt. That's just my opinion. But when it comes to her receiving bail and Jayden Lee Meek receiving the justice that he deserves, this case is going to be challenging because of the circumstances. You and I spoke about this when we did the initial podcast, where we discussed. You and I had discussions about the community being there, so social workers, people going around the flat. Was it cordoned off? Right on the day that he went missing, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of activity around them. I do know that obviously once they found his body, then I heard in court today, her apartment was cordoned off. But prior to that, there was a lot of back and forth, lots of footprints, lots of people everywhere, knocking on doors, and a whole lot was going on. And I was saying to you, I'm really concerned that could be contaminating. The complex is a crime scene. That's the last place the child was seen. So I think that, as we can already see now, there's a lot of back and forth with just details. Trying to get to the facts is going to be a challenge. Is going to be a bit of a challenge in this case, in my opinion. Should she receive bail? That's the big question right now. She is being accused of the murder. She needs to be proven guilty. All right. Is that going to happen? The other thing that came up in the bail hearing on one of the days was that her father's address was given for her to be able to stay with him in Durban, and under the assumption that perhaps then that will be a safer residence for her. Okay, a safer place.
That just for me opens up a whole other line of questions. Like, who is going to be putting the bill for her traveling back and forth?
Yes.
She obviously needs to be she is able to work remotely, which is good. She can work from anywhere. But unfortunately, when she goes to Durban, it is miles away from Roodepoort. So she will need to be escorted. Police will need to be assigned. Those are extra resources. And the state was quite strong on that one, saying that is not going to be possible. They were very outright with that because that's extra resources on the South African police services, as well as the court system. And so she needed to be closer to home so that she could attend her upcoming hearings for the trial. You spoke about Noven Naidu now, and another, I guess, tactic or strategy to kind of poke some holes into the state's case was that the security officers, their nationality came into question, saying they were immigrants, and he looked at their status. Did they have work permits? I thought that was quite interesting, because when has someone's immigration status affected the ability to be truthful or not truthful? So
yeah. And the
For
judge,
me,
I
that was
like the way she handled that too, because she also nipped him in the bud there. I mean, I'm not in favor of xenophobia. And so he even said, "What if they get deported and then they can't come and testify?" Well, if they need to if they need to testify, they will not be deported. You know.
they will
So
not, they cannot. It's again, they become state witnesses, and so they are protected by the state, and they won't be deported in that
yeah,
case. And that was confirmed by another lawyer that came on and commented on that. But I thought that was quite interesting. Like you
yeah,
said, he withdrew his statement 2 seconds after the judge interjected there.
yeah.
So that is there's also talks around the keys because Tiffany is alleging that someone else could have entered the flat, and there was talks about who has keys, who has access. People saying there's more than one set of key, and this information is going to come out in the trial. The state was very strong to say no, she's the only one that had access. There are no other keys. Yes, yes.
Made a statement today. She's the only one that has keys, and now she's saying something
And that's the
else.
same. Yes.
So yeah, I'm wondering, Ruth. I don't understand. I suppose it's his job. If that's what his client wants, he's got to fight for that. Why is
Mm.
she so? Because I'm wondering why he is so determined. Why he thinks it's such a good idea for her to get bail. Why she wants bail. Why does she want bail? Is it so that she can keep her job? Is it because she doesn't want to be in jail and she wants to be free? I suppose that's every person, isn't it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd want bail if. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
establish why they're fighting so hard for her to be out of prison. Is it because
According, according to Novin, one of the mitigating circumstances is that she looks after her mother and her brother, and she looks after both households, both her own but also her mother, and she would like to continue working. Um, and the second one is she could move to her father and then still take care of her family. So the primary mitigating factor here is her job and her income and her livelihood. But the state, they were very strong on saying no,
can't you
absolutely
do
not.
that from prison as well?
I'm not sure if that's allowed, if you're allowed to work from prison. I will have to look into that one
Mm.
because
Anyway, yeah, I
I
suppose
guess you would need to be in a different cell, have your work laptop maybe. I'm not sure how that would work either, but that's a really good question.
yeah. Well, that's just me. I suppose she's innocent until proven guilty. So the argument is why should an innocent person have their life disrupted before they've actually been proven guilty? But the judge has to make a decision that is in favor of the case. That
Mm.
that allows for justice to be seen, for justice to be brought, to court, and so yeah, it'll be interesting to see when is it being postponed to, because it's another
Until
postponement.
Monday.
Okay, so
Yes,
hopefully on
until
Monday.
Monday. The 28th.
Do you think that we are going to see an outcome on Monday?
I'm hoping, I'm being really hopeful, because the closing arguments from the state and Novin were given. And so on Monday, they're going to deliberate and go through all of the evidence, and that could roll over into another day because of everything that's come out. The state prosecutor on several occasions interjected, Ben Naidu, and said, no, that's not what we got, and that's more of what we're going to see on Monday. So we are waiting with bated breath. The entire community is waiting on this judge to rule on the bail hearing. We haven't even started with the trial. Like I said in the beginning, there's so much information that has come out, that has shed light on what happened from the time that Jayden was dropped off until the time that he was found the following morning. So I'm hoping on Monday we have some news, but we will definitely keep you updated. Thank you so much, Ela. Thank you to everyone who's watched. Thank you for sharing the space. And we will definitely keep you updated with proceedings. And let us know in the comments, guys, if we missed anything or what your thoughts were on the bail proceedings. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, see you there.
Okay. Everyone, take care and keep safe.